Mark 8:24. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking.
Hello everyone. I wanted to bring you something that was kind of on my heart for a while, and it's an interesting subject about trees and the rings of the trees and the curly things that happen in the stress of the trees and how these things relate to the Bible. So I wanted to show you this piece of wood. It's actually a piece of monkey pod. It's a tabletop, and you can see that it's got a lot of movement in it. I hope you can see that. I'm going to show you some other samples. But it is said that when a tree is growing on the side of a hill and it leans to one side, or it's got stress in some areas, you will get these curly lines, kind of 3D curly lines inside it. And it's kind of like when we're stressed and we go through challenges, it creates character, like it creates character in the wood. Sorry if you hear some birds outside, guys. They're messing around with my house. But the next thing I wanted to show you was this piece of wood. And you can notice, I hope you can see it, but there's some rings in it. And it started out once right there in the middle of the little twig, and it grew up as a seed, and then as years went by, the rings are like the years of age. And it's quite interesting when you think about, you know, how long it takes and to grow into a big tree. I'm going to show you some other things here. See, there's a bunch of curl. This piece here, this is a mango piece of furniture that I made, but just for my home. But you can see these pieces here. This is all called curly wood. Okay, and certain woods have them. Most woods have them actually, but it's a very prized thing for woodworkers and for people because it's so beautiful. It gives like a three-dimensional look when you really, which you probably can't see here, but it's really beautiful. And here's another example. I hope you can see. This is a piece of mango also. Was likely a branch, but you can see all the movement and colors. There's like in mango you've got reds and greens, and now this is a little bit weathered, but you can see how there's grays and yellows, and sometimes there's even oranges, just like the fruit itself. The mango, when it ripens, it has green and yellow and reds. It's quite beautiful inside the tree and outside the tree. And I'll actually show you that is the mango tree outside, which is not focusing very well right now. But yeah, so this is just part of the video that I wanted to put together, kind of an introduction, and I'm going to be going deep into the scriptures and showing some things that I found. And if you type in tree or trees into the Bible, you will get a ton of times that it shows up in verses. I believe I wrote down here, you know, I think it's just for tree without the S, it's like 200 times. And it shows up actually more as trees. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to leave you with that on this video, which I'm going to add to some more work on my other videos to compile it all to one video. So this is just the first of it, and I hope you enjoy the talk and the scriptures that I share after this. So talk to you soon.
All right, everyone. I'm going to actually share some things with you today that I just think is so cool and inspiring, because I have always loved trees. I grew up in Northern California around the redwoods, and I'll click through some of these pictures just to share with you. Um, but it's beautiful, the redwoods, and it just inspired me to make this video, because there's so many parallels and things that connect to my life with wood and trees, and the fruit and all these things. It's just quite amazing. So um, what I will do is start on just telling you some of my notes. Okay. um, to me, trees, there's so many verses. First of all, let me just say this: from Genesis all the way to the end of Revelation, there are so many scriptures on trees and fruit and all these things. And one of my Bible apps that I usually use wasn't working right today, so I'm using some others. But one of the verses that I'm going to be talking about today is chapter 8 in Mark, chapter 8, 24, verse 24. And that verse is, "And he looked up and said, I see trees, I see men, as trees walking." And to understand um, this verse, you really have to look back in the context before, where it talks about the leaven of the Pharisees, and then the blind man that Jesus heals. And there's always been conversations online and things about how um, it took, you know, two times for Yeshua to, heal the man, because he first, you know, spat on his eyes and wiped his eyes. And, if you read the verse, it, it basically says that he was given partial sight, where he saw men as trees, and the way that he could decipher from, you know, the trees and the men was that the men would move around, right? But if you think about it, like a blind person that has never seen, um, it would, how would you decipher these things, and what were you that you're seeing? And he was given the sight, um, and questioned after that in two stages, basically. Um, you know, and the second time uh, that Yahusha did this, his sight was restored. But I think there was a reason for that, and it's a very deep thing once you dive into it. And I don't think I'm going to be able to hit on all of that today, because I have lots of other things to share. But go read it for yourselves. That's it's a awesome um, miracle in the Word that I've always loved. And you know, if you think about when the man said, "I see men as trees," you know, men have arms, and we have I could imagine we look like trees if your eyes, if you couldn't see everything clearly, if it was blurry, I could see how that could be. And um, it's really interesting, because even our skin has, if you look at your fingers right now, if you look at the rings of your fingerprints, for instance, it looks like the rings of a tree. You know, in one sense, we are very much like trees. And if you look at the rings of a tree, and I put that up here somewhere, you know, um, you see, you know, the age and years of the tree and all of these things. And it's beautiful, you know, and I've just been so fascinated all my life with, you know, wood and trees, and of course not to worship any of these things. It's the creation, but it leads us in understanding to the creator and how he puts things in things. And one of the things that's really amazing to me too is there's verses on, you know, producing good fruit, and the seeds that are in the trees produce more trees and things like this. And if you think about men, you know, we have seeds in us also, and we produce, you know, offspring and all that too. So it's just an amazing thing to think about. There are some amazing verses all the way to Revelation, especially in Revelation and in Genesis about, you know, the tree of life. I'm just going to go over some of those just so you get, you know, it'll kind of jog your memory. You know, like for instance, we have the tree of knowledge, right? In the beginning, we have the tree of the trees in the Garden of Eden, the tree of life. We have shady trees, pine trees, olive trees, cedar trees, oak trees, fig trees, fruit trees, palm trees, fir trees, and the almug tree, which is like sandalwood or myrtle, is uh, you know, just some of the trees. It's amazing when you go through all of the. There's even apple tree, of course, you know, and sycamore trees, and you know, there's just a ton of stuff about trees in the Bible, and it's really interesting to me. So I'm gonna read you some of my notes here, guys, and then I will share some other things on the screen also. Um, Proverbs 11:30 says, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the and he that winneth souls is wise." Let me read that again. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. You can also find where it speaks about trees of life, or the tree of life, in Revelation 22:2 and Revelation 22:14. Some other things that are interesting to me about trees. I mentioned that trees have rings that reveal the age, which is interesting, and it's kind of like our skin, our fingerprint. Um, we grow roots in creation, just as, you know, branches and leaves and fruit, just as trees do. We need water to grow, as trees do, and plants. Trees have sap, that is the blood of the tree, and of course, we need blood to keep us and our hearts beating. Trees need good soil to grow, and the light of the sun. We also need the same to live. So, um, I believe that the trees, as it says in the word, once reached the heavens. And as we know, many of us have studied this, that the trees were cut down by the angels, and um, I think it was just before the flood. And there are channels actually online that show the petrified humongous trees that used to be as big as cities and wide as cities, which I don't think we can even fathom how large the trees were um, back then. I mean, we can't even. They were so large, you know, um, and there's verses on this, which I won't be sharing, so much today. But just imagining, I'll try to get to some good pictures here. The trees being so large that they would be as big as small towns. And this is interesting to me because, the trees were cut down. It's kind of what I've been getting in the Word and through the Spirit, how we are in a similar time in a spiritual aspect of that, because there are corrupt trees. People are becoming defiled with things that they are putting in us through pharma, and they are cutting down trees, like as in the wheat and the tares. And I just feel that there's a correlation with this, because there's a separation happening, as we all know, as it says in Matthew 13, the parables of the sower and the seed and the wheat and the tares, um, which is really interesting when you think about it. And there's another aspect of that too, where uh, burl wood, if you've ever seen burl wood, is a growth that grows on redwood trees. You can kind of see when actually in this, they get bigger, but it's like a disease or a like a branch or something that didn't grow. And if you cut these off, they actually have some of the most beautiful burls wood in them. It makes great tables. But what's really interesting is my dad told me when I was young, because he worked at a mill, a redwood mill, and he used to make these tables out of this. And it was just always interesting to me because, we take something that was a disease or something that, happened to the tree, and you cut it off, and it was beautiful inside. You know, it's just really interesting to me how, like I mentioned, that curly wood is, stressed wood, that, where the branches were stressing, or the tree was stressing in different areas of its life, also creates some of the most beautiful things. And if you think about, as we go through our journey in life, we have so many challenges, and those become the things that create our character, the things that strengthen us. And beauty is found in in us when we go through these hard challenges. We not only learn, but we grow and become stronger in our faith, in our walk and everything. And it's just amazing to me. So um, I also went into finding out the Hebrew about trees and these things in the word. And I'm not going to share too much on it because I don't have my screens, but I'm going to go, well, maybe I'll share a little bit. But first, what I'll do is let's go through some of these. And I wanted to go to, well, here's some of the things that you can see as far as trees in the Bible. Um, and we'll go through some of these just to kind of show an idea. So the algum, right? Called algum trees, um, Ophir and Lebanon, you can find in Kings and in Chronicles. Um, you can find trees, carving, Lebanon, palm trees, parables, um, the plants in the vineyards that Solomon in Solomon, you can find it so many places. In Genesis, of course, you can find it in Revelation. This is really interesting. If you think about this story of Jericho, called the city of palm trees, right? Um, there's just so much, guys. If you think about the olive trees and the fruit trees and the fig tree, and one of the things that we must look at too is I think I'm going to click on this here soon. The wicked people are compared with the corrupt trees, right? So if we go to Luke 6:43, for a good tree bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, neither doth a corrupt tree bringeth forth good fruit, right? And let's see what else I put up here. So this is Matthew 12:33, and let's go to the King James version. And I did this in the the lexicon also here, but the King James version, either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. So we could dive into the terms of all this stuff, but I think I'll leave that for maybe another video. And there's so much depth in the Word of God. I mean, it's like a layer, like the rings of a tree. There's so many layers to it. Oh wow, that just came to me for some reason. Um, just peeling back the layers, there's so many layers to it. And but understanding the parables is key, and reading the context, like I said in Mark 8:23, reading the context of the blind man that Jesus healed, or excuse me, that Yahusha healed. Um, just reading the whole thing. I think I even have a commentary on that, but I probably won't share it here this time. But um, yeah, so I see men as trees walking. He distinguished men from trees only by their motion. People's notes in this, and there's, like I said, there's a lot on this, right? So here's from the 21st to the 27th verse, and I guess we can go ahead and read this. And he said unto them, how is it that ye do not understand? Now, in the previous, before this, he was talking about the leaven and the Pharisees, and the miracle of how he multiplied the bread and the fish and all of that, and how they didn't understand or perceive these things, and so, and moving on here, we'll say, we'll read, and he cometh to Bethsaida, And they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands upon his eyes and made him look up. And he was restored and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. And Yahusha went out and his disciples into the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And by the way, he asked his disciples, saying unto them, whom do men say that I am? So this is just really cool. And the whole idea that there is so much that we relate to as far as growing up and producing fruit, and having discernment on the fruit of and the growth of others, and being able to notice the corrupt fruit also, to stay away from those that don't produce and are not walking in the way. And of course, there are those that will need to be watered, and those that can come to the truth. But these are all things that are given to us by the Spirit, and if we follow the Ruach, I believe that we will be led into the right places to help the right people at the right time. So this is a very deep subject, actually, with trees and all these things. And I don't want to make this video too long, so I think I'll end it here pretty soon. But some other forms of, I'll leave you with this, other forms of what it shows up as in the Bible is H6086, es, or eights. It shows up as tree, 162 times, as wood 107 times, as timber 23 times, stick as 14 times, gallows as 8, staff 4, stock at 4, carpenter at 2, branches 1, helve 1, planks 1, and stalks 1. Now this is just for that number 6086, H6086. But there are other Strong's numbers for trees and these things. So with that being said, guys, I think I'll leave you with that, and I hope this was, kind of a cool way of looking at, the trees and the relationship between us and the trees. So with that being said, guys, again, I will leave it here, and I hope you all have an amazing Sabbath. I was actually home today, and I took the day off, and I'm spending more time with the Father because I've been working so much, and I'm preparing a lot of things for my channel. I'm preparing a lot of things with another channel because she will be hosting, Linda Rose Spirit Song will be hosting my full testimony. And there are so many details of things that have happened to me over the years. It's incredible when you start categorizing and recording all these things and finding out, what should I share and what should I, just leave behind. But there are so many things that I want to share, and I hope that you will come to that channel and listen to the testimony. And I think I will probably find a way to mirror it or share it here on my channel also. So I think I will be working with Linda to find a way to let everybody know when this will come out. It's on the 26th, but I'm not sure what time we're going to do it yet. So with that being said, guys, have a great Sabbath and shalom.